Greetings, friends, and welcome to Enigma Night Gaming. My name is Liara, and I will be your guide in today's adventure. Today, we are playing the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, and in today's episode, the case is coming to a close. We had a theory at the end of the last episode that somebody had put poison on the gas pipe, and now we have to name that person. Who's it gonna be? I don't know. Let's go ahead and jump in and see if we can figure this out. So there is one other person who I believe could have been involved in all of this. The true culprit of this crime. The true culprit? A term found only in second-rate novels featuring third-rate great detectives, my Nipponese friend. But why not? This farce has gone on for so long already, I see no reason to cut it short before its disappointing climax. Thank you. Tell us, my learned Nipponese friend, what is your latest theory? Who is the so-called true culprit of this crime? Okay, so we need to think really hard about this. Who had motive to put poison on the pipe? So Soseki is who is accused of doing this whole thing. He certainly had opportunity because he was in the apartment, but he didn't really have a motive. Like, there's no good motive. Garadeb had opportunity theoretically. I mean, would he have had motive? Why would he have wanted to kill one of his tenants? That doesn't really make sense either. I don't think Shamspeare was trying to kill himself. These two certainly had motive. Did they have opportunity? I don't know. I mean, the meter man was standing outside looking in, constantly observing the gas usage, so they definitely had motive, but I don't know that they necessarily had opportunity. Now, Duncan was the previous resident of one of the apartments. I can't remember if it was Shamspeare's apartment or Soseki's apartment. I think it was Soseki's apartment. And he died as a result of gas poisoning because his fire went out, which I believe was a result of Shamspeare's actions. Which kind of makes me wonder if Olive Green was the person who did this. Now, here's the thing about that. We had that letter, right? We had the letter at the scene of the crime, the torn bit of an envelope, and she had an envelope in the hospital room that had a torn piece off of it, which kind of implies she was there. Also, Shamspeare had an argument with Miss Green. So they kind of knew each other. I feel like, I don't know, it could be completely wrong, but I want to see what happens if we try Miss Green.
Take that!
The name of the person responsible for the poison that afflicted Mr. Shamspeare is, I believe, Miss Olive Green. Miss Olive Green? Miss Olive Green? I do feel as though I've heard that name in the recent past, Counsel, but I don't recall where. Miss Olive Green, the woman from 6 days ago. The victim in the recent case of stabbing on Briar Road. An incident for which Mr. Natsumi was arrested, I hasten to add. Oh, of course, yes, Miss Green. She was left comatose for some 3 days, I believe, but I hear she regained consciousness 2 days ago. And I hardly need remind the court that Mr. Shamspeare's poisoning took place 3 days ago. Given that the woman was lying comatose in a hospital bed at the time, she appears to have a rather fine alibi. True, on the night that the incident occurred, Miss Green was in the hospital unconscious, so on the face of it, it would seem she couldn't possibly be responsible, but still, man, my gut is still saying she had something to do with it. She had motive and means. My colleagues and I visited Miss Green in the hospital yesterday, and we found her to be in possession of a bottle of poison. Good gracious, she had poison? And there is another fact that links Miss Green to this case as well. The defense requests that she be brought to the witness stand in order to explain the details to the court. I guess we did pick right. Tell me, Mr. Shamspeare. My lord, pray, what be thy bidding? Are you acquainted with Miss Green? You better not lie. No, never heard of her. Oh, I want to strangle that guy. Judging by the look on Mr. Shamspeare's face, I think perhaps he genuinely doesn't know her, at least not by name. As the voice of Her Majesty's prosecution here, I adhere to my word. We will see my learned Nipponese friend's farce through to its conclusion. I appreciate that. The prosecution requests a short recess, my lord, in order to subpoena the witness and bring her here. Yes, Miss Olive Green. Indeed, my lord. 1 hour should be sufficient. Very well, I grant the request. Excellent, I hope. The defense has made a most extraordinary accusation, I must say. But at the present time, I feel the prosecution's argument remains largely uncontested. Accordingly, I'm afraid the defendant and his culpability remain the sole subject of this court's attention. Thank you, counsels. We reconvene in 1 hour. Court is adjourned. Oh man, I can't believe we got that. I was like nervous. 23rd February, 11:32 a.m. The Old Bailey, defendant's antechamber. Joyful, jubilant, jumping jacks. I mean, don't celebrate yet, my guy. We haven't got you off yet. Oh, Mr. Natsumi, I'm so pleased for you. Locum student, Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire, and non-locum judicial assistant, Miss Mikatoba, Esquires. Now, finally, at long last, there can be proof. Proof that I'm innocent, and proof that my tea is innocent. Good morning, my dear fellows. Herr Lakshms. May you drink my tepid tea and fall forever silent. I thought you wanted us to say that your tea didn't have poison in it, sir. That's exactly what I'm thinking. I thought the tea was innocent. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, you came. How wonderful. Please save your derision. I know what you're all thinking. Good morning, he says, when it's very nearly time for luncheon. Your scorn is written clearly across your faces. Nobody said or thought anything of the sort. The truth is, I was determined that today would be the day. Sleep seduced me last night, I thought. Tomorrow, for once, I shall not oversleep. I'll rise early and be present in court to support my companions. Such spirited determination has a beauty all of its own, does it not? Oh, yes. And then I began to muse on the subject. Why do people oversleep, I queried. Why, time after time, do they make the same foolish blunder? And the answer came to me at once. It's so delightfully simple. People oversleep because they sleep. Well, is that not an astute insight into the matter? Oh, yes. Sasato's so polite. Upon which realization, I attempted an experiment. I didn't sleep a wink all night. And the results? By first light, I was exhausted and began to be assailed by fits of drowsiness. Shocking. And so the conclusion of last night's experiment is this. A good night's sleep is quite simply essential. Yes, I think most of us probably knew that already. What others presuppose, I prove by experimentation. That, my dear fellow, is the scientific method. Ah, yes, and one more thing. Do you remember this? Ah. That was the bottle of poison, right? Yes, of course, it's the poison that Miss Green was about to drink at the hospital yesterday. Or did you get it analyzed? Oh, you didn't manage to... It was a laborious task, but as the bottle was near empty. But such inconveniences do not hinder Sholmes. I managed to confirm that it contained strychnine. Oh boy. So I was right. Perhaps, though of course such circumstantial evidence doesn't prove Miss Green's guilt. I shall leave the bottle in your care now. By licking the inside of the neck, but licking the inside of the neck is not recommended. All right, the bottle of poison is entered into the court record. I almost wonder if she somehow got the poison onto the envelope and he sent the letter. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how she got the poison there, but I think she is definitely guilty. Could I have a word? Who is this? Yeah, okay. Gregson, how good of you to come. Forget it. Excuse me. Wait a minute, Inspector? Oh, he had to get his chips. I, don't wish to make a nuisance of myself. From the look on your face, I'd say it's someone else who you think is making a nuisance of himself. My dear Inspector, please speak freely. Pretend I'm not here. Believe me, if I could do that, life would be a whole lot simpler for me.
Do you have the results, Inspector, of the investigation of Mr. Shamspeare's room?
Not yet. Shouldn't be long now, though. No, I'm here about something else. The dead convict, actually. Oh, you mean the man from this newspaper article we discovered yesterday in Mr. Shamspeare's room? All the pieces are fitting together now?
A man by the name of, Selden.
I went through the archives at the yard and dug out the fellow's file. There's something in there that, well, it caught my eye. Okay.
Something caught your eye? What, Inspector? What?
I'm curious. I've copied out the relevant parts for you so you can read it for yourselves. Thank you. All right, the capital offender's file has been entered into the court record. It's Scotland Yard's file about the convicted criminal Selden that includes the newspaper article about him dying in illness in prison. Okay.
These documents include the details that were in the newspaper cutting we found in Mr. Shamspeare's room. I'll rearrange everything in the court record so we don't have duplicate information.
All right. Why are you giving us a copy of this important file, though? Well, you're the ones who turned up the clue in the first place, aren't you? I'm just making sure these things get handled in the proper fashion.
Oh, Scotland Yard's workings are so wonderful.
Indeed, my dear fellows. And the inspector here is a shining diamond in his crown. A shining diamond in the rough, maybe? Look, I just don't want to be beholden to a lawyer, that's all. All right. Counsel for the defense and the defendant. Court proceedings are about to resume. Make your way into the courtroom at once. Oh boy. Well, I shall leave you then. I'll be listening with interest from the public gallery, not nodding off at all. Certainly not. Thank you, Mr. Sholmes. I'm rather tired of seeing Mr. Mustache in floods of tears personally, so the best of luck to you.
Locum, student, Mr. Norohodo, Esquire.
Yes, Mr. Natsume?
It's time, isn't it?
Yes, this is it. Miss Olive Green and Mr. William Shamspeare. This is going to be the final battle. Oh boy, the final showdown of the whodunit. I won't really have saved Soseki-san until I've exposed the whole truth of everything that's been going on. But it's all coming to a head now. You can do it, Ryonosuke. You have to. So what do we think Miss Green's motive is? I think she must have found out. So I think Shamspeare was somehow in cahoots with the criminal that died in prison. Or he found out about it and he's looking for the treasure. Something along those lines. Either he's a partner or something like that. Anyways, his actions led to Miss Green's fiance dying, and in anger she retaliated with the poison. That's what I'm thinking right now. Let's see how this plays out though. I'm very curious to see how close to the mark we are with everything. 23rd February, 12:30 p.m., the Old Bailey courtroom. Oh boy. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare the court to be in session again now. Before the recess, we heard a most startling accusation from the defense, namely that the victim of the case we heard here only a few days ago is the true perpetrator of this incident. A reckless, rash, and prejudiced charge of wrongdoing, in my opinion, my lord. However, the prosecution has tried to extend every courtesy to this amateur newcomer from dubious eastern shores. Thank you for that backhanded consideration. A rather cold assessment from the honorable British prosecutor, I must say. So Lord Van Zeeks is the new witness present and ready to take the stand? See for yourself? Ready and waiting in the witness's antechamber, my lord. Very well. Bailiff, bring the witness in. Oh boy. Oh man, they're side by side now. Witnesses, state your names and occupations for the court, please. William Shamspeare, my liege, for mine occupation, I can say only that I be a tragic victim to be pitied. Currently unemployed, in other words. I'm Olive Green. I'm a fledgling artist. Well, no. Not a fledgling, really. A hopeless failure who's too weak-spirited to admit she has no talent, I suppose. Also currently unemployed, in other words. What a coterie. Mr. Shamspeare. My lord, I am thy humble servant. I'm afraid that you are no longer merely the victim in this affair. The possibility has been raised that you are in fact the assailant, intent on taking the life of your fellow lodger. The part you have played in this whole business will be thoroughly scrutinized, I assure you. I would for naught else, my lord. And Miss Green. Yes? You are aware of the reason you have been summoned to this courtroom today, I presume? Yes, the officer did explain. I love how she just points the finger of blame there. That's awesome. He said I poisoned this ridiculous buffoon. And do you accept the charge, Miss Green? I don't know anything about any poisoning. And I don't know anything about this man. Come, lady, die to live. Verily, I know not thy prickly pea-pigmented personage. Very well, let us proceed with the matter at hand. That being to ascertain whether or not Miss Green has any involvement in this affair.
It's all very strange indeed. Why would you suspect me? I barely ever go to the East End anyway. It so happens that I passed by that neighborhood 6 days ago, that's all. And on the night that this man was poisoned, I was still in the hospital fighting for my life.
Yes, having been unfortunately caught up in the incident on the street outside the Gerdeb household. Oh man. An incident that rendered you unconscious for some 3 days.
I was struck in the middle of my back by a knife through no fault of my own, and now I'm under suspicion. What other irrelevant things might I be suspected of? It's all very disturbing.
Your energies may be better spent worrying about random knife attacks, I feel, Miss Green. At this point in time, all that appears to connect you with Mr. Shamspeare's lodging is the Briar Road incident of 6 days ago. And that's why we would like you to testify formally now about exactly what happened.
Oh no. The incident 6 days ago? You mean you want me to relive that awful accident?
Unfortunately, yes. Please tell the court what happened that day. And of course, we will be interested to hear from you about your movements that day too, Mr. Shamspeare. So if we think back many episodes ago, we did see this clown one time in that episode, like at the beginning, I believe, and then we never saw him again. And in the back of my mind, I wondered, like, why did he make such a showing? And then we never saw him again. And now it's all starting to piece itself together. So let's see what they say. But what happened 6 days ago has nothing to do with me being poisoned. I mean, we'll find that out, won't we? Let us proceed then. The witnesses will present their formal testimony to the court on the subject of the incident that took place on Briar Road, the evening of the 17th of February. All right. Santa's angry. You better be honest. All right. The evening of the 17th of February. Oh, boy.
It was 6 days ago, at about 5 p.m. I was walking along in the snow when I was suddenly stabbed in the back. Coincidentally, it happened to be just outside the house where the men in this case have their lodgings.
I was at the tavern on the eve on which thou speakest, for I had bespoke my supper.
It was the first time I'd been in the area. I had a little matter to attend to, that's all. Anyway, I was admitted straight to the hospital, so I knew nothing about all of this business.
Right, and what matter would that be, I wonder? Yes, the second incident inside a week at what I believe to be aptly described as the haunted lodgings. One can only presume this is a most unfortunate coincidence. Meanwhile, you say you were not in your room, Mr. Shamspeare? 'Twas the following morn when I did awaken that I learned of the dire event. Mary, what a commotion did the officers of the law make on the floor above mine. When Mr. Saki-san was arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. As suspected, there's nothing connecting these two witnesses but happenstance. It's true, it does seem as though they're unrelated at first glance, but I'm not so sure. There's something lurking in the shadows here. I feel certain of it. And this is my one and only chance to expose it. Counsel, you may now cross-examine these two witnesses if you wish. Yes, my lord. All right, time for the cross-examination. All right.
It was 6 days ago at about 5 p.m. I was walking along in the snow when I was suddenly stabbed in the back.
Hold it!
I'm well acquainted with the case. I'm sorry you had to go through that.
It was awful. I still can't believe I was unconscious for so long. And I woke up to find that the case had been solved and the culprit arrested.
Yes, the incident had to have been resolved already. Perhaps it would help you to consider it a bad dream that ended with your awakening and should now be forgotten.
Yes, I suppose so. Thank you.
But before you put it completely behind you, Miss Green, I need you to remember the details one last time. You must tell the court exactly what happened that day for us to arrive at the truth about this new case.
The trouble is, there's nothing to tell, really. I was just walking along the pavement. Coincidentally, it happened to be just outside the house where the men in this case have their lodgings.
Hold it!
Coincidentally, you say? What were you doing there that day, though?
What do you mean?
The art school you attend, what's it called?
Yes, it's the Thorndike Academy of Fine Arts. According to Mr. Sholmes, that's just in the vicinity of Brixton Road, which is some 10 stops away from the scene on the Underground.
I believe you mentioned before that you also live on Brixton Road, isn't that right? So why then would you have been walking along Briar Road in the middle of the East End?
Oh, well, it's because, oh yes, of course, I thought it might make a nice picture.
The witness is a student of art. City-dwelling artists can't all paint grand urban vistas.
That's right. I happen to like the crumbling look of that part of town. Perhaps quaint would have been a less grating term.
The point is, she's definitely hiding something, 100%.
Yes, it seems she's not going to be forthcoming with the truth.
If she's trying to hide why she was there that evening, it must mean there's a reason for her not wanting us to know. That's the key to this. And you, Mr. Shamspeare, on the evening of the incident 6 days ago, would you tell the court what exactly you were doing?
It would be my pleasure, sire. I was at the tavern on the eve which thou speakest, where I had bespoke my supper.
A tavern, you say? Which one?
'Twas the Slug and Salad where I did tarry. 'Tis a jewel in the East End.
And a little unexpected, I feel. What do you mean, Lord Van Zeeks?
The Slug and Salad offers unusually fine dining, for the locality at least.
Not an establishment you'd expect to be patronized by a man with not even a crumb of bread in his room. Uh-huh.
It's true. The menu lists premium crusts of bread and glasses of water in different levels of cloudiness.
I would have expected Grubb's Grubbery in the local vicinity to be more appropriate for your means. Watery soup and mushy peas, or rather, soupy water and pea-like mush. All equally appetizing. I just wanted to try some water in a different pub for once. What's wrong with that? How different can water really be?
Or perhaps there's a more plausible explanation. A specific reason why he had to go to that particular establishment.
Agreed. The fact that on that day of all days he dined at a place he wouldn't normally, it does stand out. Was he meeting somebody there? So Mr. Shamspeare's own actions on the day of the incident 6 days ago were slightly suspicious. I wonder if we have some evidence that can explain those actions. I have a theory. Maybe he found the money, but not at the moment. I wish we did, but sadly I can't think of anything at the moment. All right. So, let's see.
If we find a clue that could explain why Mr. Shamspeare went there, we must present it to the court.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so we got to keep that in mind. If we get a clue, we'll have to come back on that. If that is all in this matter, counsel, I would ask Miss Green to reiterate her next statement.
It was the first time I'd been in the area. I had a little matter to attend to, that's all.
Hold it!
Really, a little matter, you say? What little matter, Miss Green? Please elaborate.
It was nothing, really. It's not worth mentioning.
If you remember, you mentioned it to us yesterday at the hospital. It was related to the card you were holding. Right? Miss Green. What was that? She clearly just hid something behind her back. From memory, I believe the card contained a note that read, "I have information regarding the death of Duncan Ross."
What does that matter? This has nothing to do with Duncan.
Really?
Excuse me.
Really? Mr. Shamspeare, do you have something to share with the court? He's like,
To be or not to be? That is the question. Ah, pray forgive me. The great bard's words springeth forth within me, with ne'er a thought.
Don't tell me. It's because you're possessed by Shakespeare's spirit, right? Hearing Miss Green's words a moment ago seemed to make you think of something. Something of relevance, perhaps?
Well, nay, sire, 'twas nothing at all.
Presumably you know the name, though. Mr. Duncan Ross, I mean. After all, you were both lodgers in the same house.
I would it were so, but sadly nay. Lodging be a lonely occupation, sire. My lodging fellows be rarely known to me.
So you haven't heard of him, even though he passed away in the room just one floor above yours. Miss Green?
Me, my lord? Have I done something wrong?
The card that was mentioned before, containing the note. Do you have it upon your person?
I do, yes, but I don't need it anymore. In fact, I should throw it away, really.
Before you dispose of it, the courts will take it as evidence, please. All right, so now we've got that. Okay. Of course, that's what links Mr. Shamspeare and Miss Green, right? It's Duncan Ross. Now continue with your testimony, please, Miss Green.
Anyway, I was admitted straight to the hospital, so I knew nothing about all of this business.
Hold it!
Yes, you didn't regain consciousness until the day after the trial, did you? In the early hours.
Exactly. So how could I have had anything to do with it? And yet you still hold me in here to court like this, honestly.
So at the time of the poisoning, the witness was unconscious in her hospital bed. Could there be a more airtight alibi, I ask you?
Well, and yet in spite of that, you claim I was the culprit.
Well,
But you certainly haven't produced any evidence to support your wild claim, have you? None at all.
There you have it. The good lady has yet to see evidence, my learned Nipponese friend. I'm working on it. Counsel, I will point out here that the jury's next decision will be final. We're really up against the wall here. All right.
Oh, Mr. Naruhodo, you pursued Mr. Shamspeare wonderfully there.
It worked out well, hasn't it? We have a new clue at last. All right, now I need to pull off a really insightful objection somewhere.
Well, as you've managed to expose this promising new angle, I wonder if perhaps you should perhaps try to develop that.
Ah, yes, of course. And yelling out objections isn't necessarily the best way to do that, I suppose. Okay, so I want to look at the envelope and see if we know that this piece matches this. But let's see if we can get our character to realize it. So let's first look at this. The envelope has been ripped open rather carelessly, hasn't it? Miss Green strikes me as the type to open correspondence more neatly than that.
What is it?
The way the envelope is torn, I'm almost sure I've seen the exact same shape somewhere else. Exactly?
Oh, you don't mean? Were you thinking of this piece of evidence, Mr. Naruhodo?
Exactly, that's it. Try to match them up. Yep, they come together perfectly.
They go together perfectly. This torn off end of the envelope clearly belongs with this card.
Okay, and it was found nice. Okay, so a note in the envelope seems to have been ripped open rather roughly. The envelope fits perfectly with the torn off piece found at the scene of the crime. Okay, a ripped piece of envelope that was found. Okay, so they're both updated now, right? Is there anything else about the note that we need? I think that is all we need to find out, right? So now, it was 6 days ago. Okay, so that's this. Let's see. All right. So now, it said, meet me to talk about Duncan. So let's think about it. She sent the letter to him, maybe? But why would she have the envelope? Maybe, okay. How would this have played out? Obviously, this was found at the scene of the crime. Is it here in this picture, I wonder? I don't see it here in the picture. But it was clearly at the scene of the crime. So we don't think she opened it. So he opened it? That must mean he was the recipient. So she was trying to lure him away, right? I think that's it. Okay. So when we say, do we have extra evidence, we're going to try and present that envelope. So let's go to his statement, which I believe is the third statement.
A specific reason why he had to go to that particular establishment.
Agreed. The fact that on the day of all days he dined at a place he wouldn't normally, it does stand out. So Mr. Shamspeare's own actions on the day of the incident 6 days ago were slightly suspicious. I wonder if we have some evidence that can explain those actions. Let's try it. Let's give it a shot and see if this is the evidence. Mr. Shamspeare.
Yes, sire.
On the day in question, is it not the case that you visited the Slug and Salad, a place you don't normally patronize, for a very particular reason?
I don't know what you're talking about. Pray, if that has some purpose, speakest.
Very well, I will present the court with evidence. Evidence that explains why you had to be at the Slug and Salad that day, namely this, right?
Take that!
I believe this card reveals the answer. Good lord, Miss Green's card, you mean? That's right, my lord. It reads, I have information regarding the death of Duncan Ross. Come to the Slug and Salad on Briar Road at 5 p.m. on the 17th. Don't tell anybody else about this letter or the meeting. It's a matter of utmost importance. Mr. Shamspeare, your actions on the afternoon of Miss Green's stabbing are exactly as described in this note. Personally, I find it hard to believe that's a coincidence. Don't you, Mr. Shamspeare?
Well... Excuse me, can I say something?
Yes, Miss Green?
That card was delivered to me. It doesn't have anything to do with this odd man, does it?
Well, you'd think so, yes. But it's hard to believe it's merely...
My lord, may I?
May you what, Miss Green?
I'd like to make something very clear about that card.
Very well, then, you may amend your testimony to include details about the peculiar note.
This note was delivered to me at my address. It has nothing to do with the odd man next to me here.
Except for you're wrong. Because this was found at the crime scene.
Objection.
I'm sorry, but you're just wrong. The day before the incident, exactly 1 week ago now, this note was delivered to your address. And upon carrying out the instructions in the note, you found yourself in hospital.
Yes, I did. It's terrible, everything that's happened to me.
Yes, it is terrible. If it's all true, that is.
What do you mean?
Miss Green, have a look at this, please. It's the torn off end of an envelope.
Oh, is it?
And it so happens that it fits together perfectly with the envelope of the note you received.
Where did you find that?
Oh boy, did we find it somewhere special? In Mr. Shamspeare's room.
In my room?
Mr. Shamspeare, do you perhaps remember this note from somewhere?
Well...
Your actions that afternoon follow the instructions in the note to the letter. Come to the Slug and Salad on Briar Road at 5 p.m. on the 17th, and so that's exactly where you went. Let me ask you again, Mr. Shamspeare. You already knew about this note, didn't you? And you, Miss Green?
What did I do?
As this torn off end of the envelope proves, the note was originally in Mr. Shamspeare's room. So how is it that it came to be in your possession?
I don't have the first idea. I'm just a fledgling artist after all.
And a fledgling murderess? There is only one explanation. You broke into Mr. Shamspeare's room and stole it.
You did what? Sorry, thou hast what? Thou were in my room? What on earth do you want with me?
It would seem that both witnesses need to testify again. Maybe this time with some honesty? Miss Green.
Yes?
Whilst you have the court's sympathy, I'm sure, for the suffering you have endured in recent events, anyone found to be giving false testimony in a court of law will be duly punished. Please bear that in mind. She hasn't stopped sweating.
Yes, I know.
Very well then, witnesses. You will give formal testimony again now on the subject of this curious anomaly regarding the note Miss Green claims to have received. Oh boy, how's this going to play out? The anomaly of the note.
I do remember now. 'Twas a week ago, peradventure, that note was delivered unto me. On the day writ therein I did tarry a long hour at the Slug and Salad, yet nobody came. Thereafter on the evening I shared the company of the Japanese fellow. I did see the note had vanished. I don't know what you mean. You think I snuck into this man's room, do you? Why would I?
Revenge?
I can point out the villain here. And as for that torn off piece of envelope, I don't know anything about it.
So many lies. You now claim to have received this letter, do you, Mr. Shamspeare?
Faith, 'tis so, my lord. And I would swear to have set it upon the table in my humble lodgings. Yet 'tis clear to me now that since I returned from the tavern that night, I have not laid eyes upon it.
Well, that being the case, young lady, it would appear that your testimony was...
A lie? Is that what you think? How unfair of you to think I'm the one lying.
I beg your pardon?
I'm just a fledgling artist, as I said, and fledgling artists don't lie.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That note was delivered to me at my address, besides. We all know who the liar around here is.
If that's true, Miss Green, how do you explain the facts? This part of the envelope was without question found in Mr. Shamspeare's room.
I don't see why I should explain.
Sorry?
I'm a fledgling artist. My job here is just to say what happened, that's all. It's your job to give the explanations and the proofs, you, the fledgling lawyer.
The fledgling will do his best.
Evidently, my learned friend's cross-examination is our only hope of learning the truth.
Well, counsel? I'm ready, my lord. Time for the cross-examination. Oh boy. Very well then. The defense will now proceed with the cross-examination of the witness.
Miss Green clearly did break into Mr. Shamspeare's room. There can be no question of that. And that's how she acquired the note.
Yes, two facts that are starting to lead me to a possible explanation for all of this. And it's not a pretty one. Oh boy. So, we're starting to see the truth here. The anomaly of the note.
I do remember now. 'Twas a week ago, peradventure, that note was delivered unto me.
And can you shed any light on the contents of the note at all?
Nay, sire, 'tis as strange to me as a foreign tongue. Even with a knowledge of literature as great as mine own, verily, 'tis impenetrable.
But Mr. Duncan Ross had lodgings in the same household as you. In effect, he was your neighbor, so surely you knew him, didn't you?
Alack, if the choices be twixt I knew him and I knew him not, then 'tis with foreboding that I be forced to declare we were by some small measure acquainted.
Despite your claims, though, you followed the note's instructions and went to the Slug and Salad. Presumably that was nothing to do with your knowledge of literature.
Marry, naught will have the better of me, sire, save for the lure of curiosity. So 'tis true, I was compelled by mine own eager heart to betake myself to the tavern. Yet in the end, my curiosity was not sated. On the day writ therein, I did tarry a long hour at the Slug and Salad, yet nobody came.
Nobody at all. So even after waiting for an hour, nobody appeared?
Well, yes, sire, 'tis as thou sayest.
Really? You paused for a moment before you answered.
In truth, when thou asked whether nobody appeared, I did suddenly recall.
Really? Do you mean to tell the court that somebody did appear after all?
I was not alone that night at the Slug and Salad, my lord. No, 'tis returning to me now. I did treat my lips to almost clear water, and my innards to a premium crust of bread, and all around me danced a great many companions.
What do you mean?
Flies, sir, sire, flies.
Good Lord!
In the name of Beelzebub, what were they? Fairies, perchance, from a midsummer night's dream, come to taunt me.
I think they were just flies.
I can't help thinking that the flies ought to choose something more wholesome to buzz around.
Ouch! When you're not good enough for flies.
Is that wrong of me?
I don't think you're wrong, Susato.
Thereafter, on the evening I shared the company of the Japanese fellow, I did see the note had vanished.
Hold it!
When exactly did you notice it had gone missing?
Such idle thoughts never occupy my mind. I am busied with greater ideas.
In other words, you didn't notice. Several days passed between your outing to the tavern and Mr. Natsumi's visit to your room. Yes, it would appear the note disappeared sometime in that interval.
Hey, Toad, welcome in. Such idle thoughts ne'er occupy my mind. I am busied with greater ideas.
And yet, during that time, Miss Green was comatose in hospital, was she not? Clearly, then, she could not have been stealing things from Mr. Shamspeare's room.
Yes, of course. It's all some sort of misunderstanding, isn't it, Mr. Prosecutor, sir?
He's not willing to say yes? You have so far failed to give a satisfactory explanation as to how you came by the note. I am not here to advocate for your defense, madam. I won't tolerate inconsistencies in your story. You would do well to remember that.
Oh, dearie me.
What's Lord Van Zeek's getting at?
I don't know what you mean. You think I snuck into this man's room, do you? Why would I?
Revenge?
It seems that this note was actually delivered to Mr. Shamspeare about 1 week ago. Oh, does it?
But for some reason, it ended up in your possession. I can't think of any way that could have happened except for you breaking into Mr. Shamspeare's lodgings. But for what reason would the witness have done that? I won't deny that Miss Green's possession of the note would appear to defy logic. However, until and unless her involvement in this case can be proven in some other way, any further pursuit of this note is meaningless.
Miss Green could only have come to be in possession of the note by stealing it from Mr. Shamspeare's room. And yet, there's no obvious reason why she would have done such a thing.
What if there was some other reason she broke into his lodgings, though?
Yes, we should pursue that idea, Mr. Naruhodo.
We're close now. I can feel it. We're so close to a breakthrough. Was she looking for proof that he killed her fiancé? Maybe?
I can point out the villain here, and as for that torn off piece of envelope, I don't know anything about it.
So you don't want to tell the truth of the court, the truth about the letter, is that it?
I'm a fledgling artist. Remember, artists are nearly always introverted characters.
Introverted? Fie, this fledgling doth readily cast aspersions about my nature.
Yet I am an angel, a seraph. Birds do harmonize with my song. The wind doth frolic on my wing. O pity, wherefore dost thou accuse one so pure of heart, ample woman? Pure of heart? I don't think so. Even a fledgling like me can see you're just a failure. Tragedy, thou shalt not know the true heart of an artist until thine instruction hereafter by death. Oh, the days, oh, the years, alas, to enlighten thee thou must. Mr. Naruhodo, inject with some clever remark. This is your chance to shine.
I'm no Shakespearean actor, Miss Rosato. No, as far as I can tell, the only thing that's going to resolve this argument
is evidence, yes.
Okay, so
It's clear that Miss Green did in fact break into Mr. Shamspeare's room, isn't it? And that's where she found this letter.
Yes, two more or less foregone conclusions that led me to one terrifying conclusion.
Terrifying?
Yes, I'm afraid to say that the outcome of this cross-examination may well change how we look at this case completely.
I do remember now.
Okay, so we're back to the beginning now. So let's look at our evidence. So we know, we have an idea why she broke in, right? Was it revenge? Because of this. Why was this in Mr. Shamspeare's room? Let's look at this. Is there anything about this? I'm very curious why this is here. Why was this here? We have an idea that Shamspeare was trying to get into that room where Soseki now is. And he managed to kill this guy because he wants the money, right? How can we prove that she was not there for anything else? I don't know. Let's look at our information. So I don't think it's going to be any of his statements right now. I don't think so. Okay. Why would she sneak into his room? Do we present the poison? Was it not to retrieve the letter? Okay. That's what we're looking for here. She didn't sneak into his room to get the letter. She snuck into his room to kill him. So let's present the bottle of poison and see if that's right.
Objection.
Yesterday at the hospital, we saw you with this bottle. And though the contents spilt during the course of our meeting, a small quantity remained. According to the defense's independent analysis, Mr. Sholmes' chemistry set, the liquid that was still in the bottle was identified as strychnine.
What? Strychnine? The very same poison that afflicted Mr. Shamspeare?
Exactly. Miss Green, you broke into this man's lodgings for one reason, and one reason alone. To cover the end of the pipe that feeds the gas lamp in Mr. Shamspeare's room with poison. I mean, that way if he was doing something fishy, he would reap the consequences of his own actions. So, I mean...
Can this be? You broke into my room to...
It may seem incredible to the court, but from the remaining clues, there's only one logical conclusion that we can reach. The person who attempted to take Mr. Shamspeare's life with poison was you, Miss Olive Green. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dearie me! Oh man.
Order! Order! Counsel, are you seriously suggesting this woman put poison on the end of the gas pipe with intent to kill?
Yes, my lord. There's no other way to explain the facts.
But if Miss Green did indeed set this odious trap 6 days ago, and the victim had put his mouth to the pipe that very evening as suspected, the attempted murder would have happened 6 days ago, surely.
Well, that's a very good point.
Perhaps not, my lord. I beg your pardon?
There was a significant police presence in the area that evening on account of the incident on Briar Road. Local residents were being interviewed throughout the night as part of the ongoing inquiry.
A circumspect criminal would likely have chosen not to carry out any wrongdoing at that time. Lord Van Zeeks.
And of course, the following morning, there was more activity at Mr. Shamspeare's address.
More activity? Ah, yes. You mean his fellow lodger, Mr. Natsumi, being arrested on suspicion of murder?
That's right. And as the defense has already proposed, Mr. Shamspeare was meddling with the gas in the pipe for a very sinister reason himself, to cause the gas stove in Mr. Natsumi's room to go out, thereby asphyxiating the occupant.
Yep. But once Mr. Natsumi had been arrested, his room was under constant surveillance by the police. In the circumstances, Mr. Shamspeare had no reason to blow air into the gas pipe. His intended victim being in a prison cell, with the need to tamper with the gas removed, the poison on the pipe lay dormant.
And then, 3 days ago now, the situation changed again.
Right, Mr. Natsumi's trial, which took place here at the Old Bailey, came to an end. The trial in which the man stood accused of stabbing Miss Green in the back, but was duly acquitted. That resulted in Mr. Natsumi returning to his lodgings for the first time in 2 days. And that very night, his gas stove mysteriously went out, and Mr. Shamspeare was mysteriously poisoned. In conclusion, the poison that was present on the mouth of the gas pipe had been put there in the victim's room some 4 days earlier. If you hadn't been doing criminal activity, you wouldn't have gotten almost killed, you dummy. With that new understanding, it becomes clear that this letter was all part of the plan. What plan? To lure him out of the building, of course. The court will recall that the note gave instructions to visit the Slug and Salad at 5 o'clock, and that the recipient should tell nobody else. The reason for those instructions are now clear. To ensure that the lodger would not be at home at the stated time. To make sure I wasn't home? Exactly. While you were out, Miss Green could safely slip into your room, knowing that she wouldn't be disturbed. You mean to say that letter was written by Miss Green? Yes. And in order to cover her tracks, she took it away with her when she left. Just after she smeared poison over the mouth of the gas pipe in your room. I mean, it was justified. Order, order. What do you have to say for yourself, witness? Just who are you? Why did you try to kill me? Miss Green's motive should be obvious. I mean, it's obvious to me. It's all tied up with someone whose name we've heard several times already during the course of this trial. So, that's what's behind all this. You will share your apparent understanding with the court, please, counsel. Which person is behind this woman's motive for the attack on the victim's life? Well, that's obvious. It's Duncan Ross.
Take that!
Duncan Ross? That's right. Before the defendant, Mr. Natsumi, took up residence in the lodgings at Mr. Garadab's, somebody else was renting the room. Mr. Duncan Ross. I knew I'd heard that name somewhere else. It was all over the papers a month ago, when the man died in strange circumstances at the haunted lodgings. That does ring a vague... Oh, of course, yes. I remember now. The young man they claimed was strangled by the convict's curse or some such. Sadly, my lord, it wasn't a curse of any kind, nor was it an accident. The man died as a result of Mr. Shamspeare blowing into the gas pipe and causing gas to leak into the room. It was murder, plain and simple.
Well, what do you know? The world is so unfair. Curses, curious deaths. That's all people care about. If it's an interesting story, they want to know. It doesn't cross their minds that real people are involved. And once they're bored, just 1 month later, once the story's lost its appeal, everyone's forgotten him.
You mean you? Duncan was.
Miss Ross was Miss Green's fiancé.
Fiancé?
You may not have known until now who Miss Green really is, Mr. Shamspeare. But she's known exactly who you are all along, because you're her sworn enemy, the murderer who took the life of the man she was to marry.
Mary?
Yep, woman scorned, Miss Green. Is it not the case that in order to exact revenge on Mr. Shamspeare, you smeared poison over the end of the gas pipe?
This is all quite extraordinary. Am I correct in my understanding that you now accuse both parties, counsel? Each on different counts of murder?
Yes? Yes, my lord, that's correct, although one is obviously more sinister than the other.
Inhaling so deeply, it appears that my fledgling learned friend has taken in a lungful of dubious gas that's causing his judgment to be clouded.
What?
Why would Mr. Shamspeare have wanted to kill these lodgers, as you say? You have completely failed to provide a motive to substantiate your accusation against the man.
I mean, that one's obvious too.
Yes, that's right, Mr. Reaper, my liege. I have been slighted. It is lies, all lies. I deny every utterance.
And you'll have to forgive me, Mr. Naruhodo, sir. But I don't intend to admit anything either. Miss Green, I'm sure you'll think I'm being very rude, but I'm not going to be sent to the gallows for the likes of this scoundrel. But you broke into the man's room. If you didn't do it to smear poison on the pipe, what was your reason? She has no reason. I thought I'd have a look around, that's all. Sorry? You're right, I suspected him. So I thought perhaps I might find some evidence or something in his room. Evidence that it was him who took Duncan's life.
Oh, vileness, oh, villainy, oh, tyranny, oh, rotundity of woman. But in any case, whene'er I leave my room, I do turn the key in the lock.
Did nobody notice the giant key that's around her neck? Just saying. That whole place is falling apart. The locks on the doors are no different. Duncan showed me once how to unlock the door with some terps and a piece of wire.
Oh, awfulness, oh, artfulness, oh, tyranny, oh, profanity of woman. We will consider your trespassing on some future occasion. But for now, tell the court what you found, what evidence your search revealed.
Well, I spotted the note that I'd sent him lying on the floor. When I went to pick it up, I noticed something. One of the floorboards was loose, and underneath it I discovered a secret hiding place.
Eh?
Yes, we also discovered that hiding place. Inside, we found a newspaper cutting, a photograph, and an empty tin box. Ah, yes, well, the thing is, when I found it, the box wasn't empty.
What? There was something in it?
Yes.
Was it the £1,000?
This rather nice key.
Ah. What are you doing with that?
What the? Every ounce of color has drained from his face.
Give it here! Give it to me now! It's mine! I inherited it! What was that, witness? What did you say? You inherited it? No, What's all this about? He inherited that key? It was obviously important to you since you'd gone to such lengths to hide it, so I took it. I don't know what it's for, but you took something precious from me, so I took something precious from you. So what if it means you can't open something now? I don't care. Give it back this minute. Give it to me. Calm yourself, witness. So Mr. Shamspeare has tried, and in one case succeeded, to take the life of 2 lodgers now. Yes, his motive for doing so is the key to everything that's happened. It's true that there appears to be no motive to support the accusation against Mr. Shamspeare at first. But considering everything we now know, I think there's actually something that could explain it. What? I need to recall every piece of evidence at our disposal. Everything we've seen and heard. Because I'm sure that I just caught a glimpse of the link that runs through all these events. In that case, counsel, I must demand that you present evidence to the court to support your claim. What is it that you say can explain the motivation for Mr. Shamspeare's alleged crimes? All right, so it's the money, right? Which one is talking about the money? Let's find out. It's going to be in here, right? Let's see. Estimated 1,000 pounds of loot. It's got to be this, right? So let's present Scotland's the capital offender file.
Take that!
That's an official police report, is it not? The Selden file. How did you get a hold of that? Selden? The now sadly deceased Mr. Ross and the defendant Mr. Natsumi have only one thing linking them. The fact that they had lodgings in the same room. Well, yes, we know this certainly. A room that was formerly occupied by Selden. Until, that is, he was arrested by Scotland Yard for his involvement in multiple burglaries. I see. And it so happens that the convict Selden left behind one very substantial mystery when he died. The sum of 1,000 pounds worth of loot that he stole, which as yet remains to be found. Ah, yes, of course, it's coming back to me now. It's written in this file here. 1,000 pounds lost en route to hell. That was how the paper summed it up. And it seems that one particular fellow inmate was with the convict in his final moments. It's not hard to imagine Selden entrusting that inmate with his most closely guarded secret, the location of the stolen loot, and perhaps a key to unlock whatever container the valuables were in. You mean this key is... Mr. Shamspeare, it was you, wasn't it? You were at the capital offender's side when he died, were you not? Well, what are you talking about? 'Tis a false charge, I tell you. A false charge. The name of the inmate who was with Selden at his death isn't noted in this file, but a simple telegram to the prison where he died would quickly tell us how false the charge really is. Ugh. But even if it's true, why would the man be so intent on killing every subsequent occupant of the convict's lodgings? Because that's where the money is. There's only one explanation for that, my lord. It was in that very room that Selden hid his loot. Yep. Boom. So it all comes out. Yes. And having established that, all of Mr. Shamspeare's subsequent actions start to make perfect sense. When he was let out of prison following Selden's death, he made immediately for Mr. Garadev's lodgings in the hope of renting Selden's old room. However, the retired army man was unable to offer him the accommodation of his choice, because Selden's old room had already been let to somebody else, Mr. Duncan Ross. Which is why Mr. Shamspeare subsequently devised his gas-based plot to kill the occupant of the room. And when he was successful, he presumably intended to inquire about switching to the newly vacated room. However, a certain jittery someone had beaten him to it. Mr. Soseki Natsumi, the defendant of this case, no less. So you decided to use the ploy with the gas again, didn't you, Mr. Shamspeare? This time to oust Mr. Natsumi. All for one simple and avaricious reason. To get your hands on the 1,000 pounds of loot left behind by the dead convict. He's defeated. We figured him out. Oh man. What an epic case. It looks like I'm gonna snuff it before they get me to stretch me neck. Listen, I want you to have me loot. Anything to stop the coppers getting their mitts on it. It's sitting in the room where I was lodging when they got me. Here, this is the key to it. Take it. Always stay one step ahead, mate. See ya now, I guess. Shamspeare. Oh, man. The truth comes out. It's mine. What did he just say? It's mine. That loot is mine. He's gone crazy now? Mr. Shamspeare? It's all lies. I don't accept any of it. Why should I? After all, you don't have a shred of evidence. You can't prove I killed that fellow. Forsooth, I'm the victim here, remember? Isn't that right, ladies and gentlemen? If I don't admit to it, there's nothing you can do. You can't arrest me, for the time being anyway. Verily, you can't arrest the victim, can you? Isn't that right, ladies and gentlemen? I think you're convincing them. I'm so close, I just need a few more hours. I swore to myself that I'd get my hands on it, and I can almost taste it now. Do you really think I'd just give up? There's no question in my mind now. This man is guilty through and through.
But he seems so utterly intoxicated by the idea of that loot. I'm afraid that however hard you press him, he'll never admit to what he's done, Mr. Naruhodo.
There is a way.
Pardon?
There's one way I can finish him.
No.
He's already committed the most heinous crimes to get his hands on that loot. Which means all we need to do is find it first. A fine plan. Were it not for the fact that the police thoroughly searched the room following the death of Mr. Ross. If it's there at all, it must be very well hidden indeed. Without conclusive evidence, I certainly cannot rule.
If only there was some way we could find the convict's loot quickly.
This is the final piece in this complex puzzle, but I think we might have it in our possession already. Or rather, I think we may well have something that can help us find where that loot is hidden. Yes, we can. My lord. Yes, counsel? The defense would like to make a proposal about how to find the late convict's hidden loot. I believe we are already in possession of something that could give us a clue as to its whereabouts. It's our last chance, so it has to be worth a gamble. Besides, We've used the same technique once already, and it definitely paid off then. It's the handprint picture taker. Very well then, Counsel. Let the court hear your idea. What do you propose we can use in order to locate the hiding place of the deceased convict's hull? Let's see. I don't think we actually have the device, right? But can we use the photograph to show us, right? Let's see. Let's see. We got the secondhand booker seat, nearby street map. I think it's got to be the handprint thing. Let's see if the skin print seeker gun. Let's do this.
Take that!
Right? If I'm not mistaken, those are Mr. Shamspeare's handprints on the wall of his lodgings. That's right, my lord. Exposed as a result of the defense's independent investigation of the scene.
Based on a wonderful new discovery in the field of forensic science by the great detective, Mr. Sholmes.
A great detective? Is that some kind of joke? Do you really think I'm going to be daunted by a man with such a ridiculous title? Okay, Shamspeare, sure. I should think the great bard ought to recognize such a title when he hears one, Mr. Shamspeare. I knew it was going to be him. Perhaps we should compete for the honor of most ridiculous title. I choose Sholmes any day. Ah, it is Sherlock Sholmes himself. What are you doing here, great detective? Your usual haunts are the filthy back streets of the capital, are they not? Ah, Mr. Reaper, it's been too long, and I see your complexion has worsened since we last met. Mr. Sholmes. He does know Lord Van Zeeks, then. Well enough to say something like that in any case. Mr. Sholmes. Though you may be heralded as a great detective by the population at large, that does not give you the right to come and go in my courtroom as you see fit.
If I may, my lord, Mr. Sholmes' newly developed scientific method has helped us uncover vital clues in this case already.
Clues, you say? I call them skin prints, my lord. My method identifies every location touched by an individual under scrutiny. It's the method by which we were able to ascertain this gentleman's gas pipe activities. You need only a small sample of something the individual has previously touched to make an indicator solution. In your case, sir, I used the teacup you'd been holding. Elementary. So now, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes. What am I to use as a sample to make the indicator solution this time? Thank you for offering to help, Mr. Sholmes. When the convict was arrested, he was living in what is now Soseki-san's room. We need a sample to help locate Selden's loot that is hidden in his old room. What form will the sample take? Alright, so we're going to pause it there at that decision. Was it going to be an evidence or a person? What in the world are we going to use for the skin print test to determine where Selden's loot is? I don't know. Let's think about it and come back to it in our next episode. So if you like this kind of content, please make sure to like, subscribe, follow, share, all that good stuff. If you want to watch live, we're on Twitch at twitch.tv/Lear27. I have my schedule posted in the about and in the description. And if you want to see which games we're playing each day, I post them on x.com/Lear27. And I hope you'll join me in the next one. Until then, guys, bye.